The meeting is being recorded. We'll open with a karakia. Please stand. Kia tauna manaakitanga ati mea naro. Ki runga ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mahi rata ua maki. Toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te araha, toi te reo mari. Kia tuturu, kia whakamoa, kia tēnā, huie, tāki. Thank you. Do we have any conflicts of interest? There are none. There are no apologies, but Wairika will be late. He'll be here shortly. And there are no late items. So the report for decision today, 4.1, is I'll hand over to the Chief Financial Officer and the Director of Commercial to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to actually pass to Director Commercial to lead through the document in detail. But this report is, I'm not going to go through in detail, but it's putting up 3 options for potential rates increases for the 26-27 annual year. Following on from the discussion last week with some options to look at ability to reduce the potential rates increase. There's 3 options in the paper, and I'll leave it for David to discuss in detail.
Brent.
I just wondered if we could have a quick comment on maybe how the debate's going to be done. Personally, I hope we don't rush into anyone suggesting options and amendments and 20 amendments and whereas having long running the indicative supports.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get the reports, we're going to have the questions, then we'll have a brief summary of that and a discussion as to where we want to go from there. But there'll be plenty of time for discussion. We won't rush anything. David.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, councillors. Following the council meeting on the 27th of May and last week's workshop, you've indicated a request to consider budget changes to reduce the rates increase. And in order to adopt the annual plan by the end of the month, we need a timeline and to get the work done to bring a paper forward for adoption of that budget. Hence, an extraordinary meeting called today in order to have some decisions made around this table to give us the opportunity to bring back the budget to be adopted at the end of the month. So this paper has been pulled together fairly short notice, and we've allowed as much consideration as we can give it, and some of the words may not be a full explanation of the implications of what's been suggested, but very open to your questions and further analysis of what those implications might be for the suggested changes in budgets. But just in terms of the options, option 1 is the current budget that was worked up over the last 6 months and results in a 5.2% rates increase. And it comes very close to the balanced budget requirement of the government, just under. The second and third options make reductions to budget expenditure, increases in budget revenue, and in option 3, some reductions in the funding for loans and putting money into reserve funds for depreciation. What we didn't do is we considered no budget reductions on areas where councils made previous decisions not to reduce budget services. So we didn't put up suggestions saying community development grants, for example. You've made decisions in the past to maintain those things. We've put up reductions where levels of service we haven't put up reductions where levels of service would require consultation. So a reduced spend means a reduced level of service, and we would have to consult on that reduced service. We haven't put up those options because there isn't the time to do the consultation. We've reconsidered assumptions around efficiencies and costs, and one of those is in the staff area where vacancy lag is a saving. It is often achieved because staff who leave aren't replaced straight away. There's a saving in terms of the salary, and history shows that we've achieved savings in those salary budgets through that. By putting that up as a suggestion, there's a risk that we don't achieve it, but it's an option to take a risk to under budget salaries, assuming there'll be vacancy lag that comes through. Similarly, with reductions in maintenance budgets that result in less work being done. There's an example of the airport buildings maybe need a repaint. We're taking a reduction. We're looking to put forward a reduction in the budget for the airport building maintenance. The building will look a bit tattier for a bit longer. Those are the sort of decisions that result from reduction in budgets. I think that's probably enough from me. As far as the options go, option one, we've given you information about what changed from what went out in the consultation material. Costs have gone up in some areas. There's some additional revenue that we've made assumptions around and managed to bring it back at the 5.2% rates increase. So that's listed on page 8 of the agenda. And then option 2, the savings and extra revenue. Your Worship, did you want to go through each one of the items here?
I think we'll do them at that in discussion time.
Okay. The only things that I wanted to mention there were the rural roadside trees, where 150,000 was added to the budget in the February budget preparation time in order to address some problem areas with trees that were blowing over or potentially blowing over and creating transport road disruption. That part of the reason why the rates increase was at 5.2%. You want to reduce the 5.2%, reducing the option for rural roadside trees is one way to do that. So we put up reducing it by 55,000. Stormwater and creek maintenance and clearing is another one where we upped the budget during the year because there's been more growth, more need to keep those creeks and drains clear. If you don't want the budget spend to go up, we can cut that back to what it normally is. And the level of maintenance will decrease similarly. Roadside mowing, noxious weeds, road legalisation, legal budget are others in the cost reduction areas that will have an effect, but not major effect. The option 3, where reducing the depreciation funding and reducing the loan repayment means the balanced budget moves further away. It's 98.9%, and that council has to make a conscious decision to not achieve a balanced budget. So it's not a financially prudent decision according to the Local Government Act, but the council can make that decision. there's implications for future depreciation funding. This is the future capacity to do renewals work if you reduce depreciation funding. And we haven't explored the implications for YT workers in terms of what their expectation is of taking over debt and taking over depreciation reserves at June next year, based on the budgets and the LTP and the potential changes here to the budgets. But we're putting it up as an option for your discussion.
AJ, did you want to add anything?
No, you wish. I think David summarised it very well.
I've just got a question first, then we'll go to Brent. Is there any reason, thank you, David and AJ, page 9, where you've got the $100,000 lease transferred to the flood storm damage fund, is there any reason why that couldn't be in as part of the option 2? No, okay. Councillor Goodwin.
Just a few queries. The option 2, revenue from parking, dog fines, resource consents, building consents, water supplied to Wainava, all increased. Is that you putting up the charges or just increasing your assessment of what revenue will come in from those?
Yeah, it's a more ambitious, optimistic assessment of the revenue that we will receive.
So it's just an assessment, that's fine. And the reducing the depreciation, is that what Carterton and quite a few councils with amalgamation looming, is that what they've done?
I don't know. I haven't analysed Carterton's account.
Okay, and lastly, on page 13, the personnel costs in option 1 and option 3 are higher than what is in the current annual plan. There's 40,000, bit over 40,000 more. And we agreed on the annual plan was only sort of signed off semi-signed off very recently. I'm just puzzled why they've popped up. You see what I mean?
The annual plan hasn't been signed off, councillor. That's what you're doing at the end of the month.
No.
So the proposed annual plan that was put up in February was an estimate of the staff costs. And there's been some small movement in some of the staff costs between February. Now we've had advice on some cost increases, not in salaries, but one of the components of the remuneration. So we've increased that as our best estimate of what those costs will be.
Okay.
Councillor Heppel.
David, there's mentioned through this quite a bit regarding the balanced budget and the Local Government Act. If we don't achieve anywhere near a balanced budget through the Local Government Act, how is that going to look with the audit department? How are the audit department likely to approach this?
They don't make a judgment on council's financial prudence. They ask if you have complied with all the legislation that you need to comply with, and it's a regulation within the Local Government Act rather than legislation. So we can put our hand up and say we haven't complied with this regulation. And there's no penalty for that. And the other assessment is called going concern, and that is, over the long term, is your business sustainable? And any auditor, any accountant will look at the going concern of the business that they're analysing in financial sense, and is there enough revenue coming in to cover the costs on an ongoing basis? And the lower you go below that balanced budget, the less chance is that you have a sustainable business. So council's revenue includes rates, setting the rates at the right level to make sure that the balance, the budget is balanced is what we're.
Any other questions? Councillor Jackson, then Deputy Mayor Bowyer.
Just did want to say thank you to the staff for pulling together this document in relatively short time. David, I just wanted to understand the increase in revenue and in particular the other revenue stream, the risk of that. Like, what's your level of comfort that increased revenue, are we going to be able to make that, or how much level of comfort do you have in that decision?
I'm not completely comfortable.
Yeah.
For example, parking meters and the level of infringement issued parking, having new parking meters on the street and collecting revenue across the whole area that has controlled parking. We've been down in that revenue area for a number of years where meters haven't been working. Installation of new meters will increase that. We had a conservative estimate put in our budget. We've upped that estimate, hoping that the revenue from those new meters will be more. I suppose the conservative side of me says we should stay with the conservative number, but we're looking for more revenue wherever we can get it, and that's one of them. The other area in the Wainawa water charges to Carterton District Council, we kept that lower because they have introduced a processed water system over there where businesses, including J&L, can take water from a non-potable water supply and to use in their business, and we're expecting the use by J&L to reduce of our water that we charge for. There's no evidence that that's occurring yet, and that J&L aren't using a lot of non-potable water. They're still using Marsden water. So we have assumed that we will get a similar level of revenue as we have in previous years in Wainawa. Now, that's not to say J&L change their mind and don't use as much water, and therefore that revenue assumption is at risk, and we don't need it. But we're offering it up as an option to put forward.
Is the other revenue, David? What makes up other revenue? Because we've seen a lump of increase and then we go down again. Is it the library?
In the financial statement.
Yeah. On page 14, yeah.
So that you're looking at 1.8 million.
Yeah, what makes up that?
It's a whole lot of things like waste levy that from the government, petrol tax from the government, which is only about 180,000, I think. Waste levy is about 400,000. Grants where we're still receiving some grant funding from Better Off funding, which we haven't spent. So we're still, when we spend it, we claim it. So it's one-off revenue that is not part of a fees and charges regime.
Thank you. Craig.
Just a bit of clarification. Thank you very much for what I think. Just want to echo what AJ said. You can put this together really quickly. Okay. Water resilience project funding removed. Now, I know it's 20 grand. Is that just what was left over for work to be done, or so there'll be no project work done whatsoever?
We funded that 20,000 to the water resilience project for the last 3 years, I think. There's, I understand, it finishes and there isn't a proposal to do anything else. So having a $20,000 budget provision for something that we don't know what it would be spent on, I'm suggesting you take it out. If you want to leave it in there so that it gives you options to fund something, then leave it in.
It's just, thank you for that clarification. Also, I just want to echo the concern around this increased revenue from parking dog farms. I personally, and it used the word hoping, and that signifies a bit of risk for me that we won't make that. And so I think we need to have a bit of a talk about that. And also Mayor Johnson bringing up about the $100,000 for the flood storm damage fund, whether or not that could come up, and that may offset some of those, the perceived risk around not making those revenue targets.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. Just Councillor Goodwin, you mentioned what was the rates increase? I'm not sure.
3.8,
3.8%.
from memory.
3.9.
Actually.
3.9.
With the all the things on option 2, what was the actual process for finally getting it down to those particular items? Did you go through everything and these are the only ones where you could see there was potential for reduction? Or were there others that just missed the cuts? And for each one of these things, if you take, say, trails, which is $1,000, do you look at that proportionally compared to the whole trails budget? Yep. But so what was the process to get to the point where you came up with just these particular things?
Stepping through every line item of 3,000 line items in a range of different budgets. And AJ and I both did it independently and then compared our options. AJ was pretty hard on the footpath maintenance budget and the roading engineers pushed back on that, saying we haven't done much footpath maintenance because we're doing CBD at the moment and next year we need to do some footpath maintenance, so you can't cut that. So line by line, if there's a $30,000 budget and we've traditionally spent 20,000 or 25,000, and next year we're asking for 30, take 5 off that, because this is what we've been spending. This is what it costs to do that service. We don't need the extra 5. That's the sort of thinking in terms of going through line by line, say where do we not need to put it in. It's not saying that the 30,000 isn't needed next year to do whatever that line item was, because there's inflation, there's always cost pressures. So these are the things that came out of that review that can be reduced, but there are implications in terms of the reductions in those spends. Even though we're putting them up, there are implications for spending less. There's implications for putting less into the flood damage fund. There's a report that will come up to the 24th of June meeting asking for more draw on that fund because of damage from April rain event. So yeah, every line item has had consideration. The recreation trails ordered works budget is I think 40,000. So a 10,000 reduction means less can be done, but it's one way to get the spend down.
When you say less can be done, if it will be done with 30,000?
That's not my call. It's the asset manager's call. They will work with the budget they're given, and if they can't, they spend up to a budget, they can't do any more work if it's needed.
Just following up on Councillor Goodwin's point, with the consulted amount for personnel costs and the options 1 and option 3, they're both $41,000 more than the consulted amount. And you said, anticipate, what were those, what was the 40, you just said the $40,000 is made up of, unanticipated costs. What are they specifically?
The remuneration authority will
Yep.
elected member, the increases.
So it's just for the elected members, that's
Not-
40,000?
Not just,
No.
that's a component of it. We also have the likes of PSA negotiations where they look like they're going to land.
Mhm.
We've looked at where we can have efficiencies too, to try and reduce some of the labour cost
Mhm.
in those areas. The non-replaced leave is another component that we look at. So an example might be that we want, there's I suppose, a gap between when employees leave and having to fill that void. That's factored into it. There's also a component of improved annual leave management. So over Christmas or various times, we will be more strongly, and we can see that we've demonstrated that too over the past number of years of reducing down leave liability over, but by having leave management plans. Those with long amounts of leave have to take annual leave and reduce down to 4 days a week. So all of that there, I suppose, adds towards reducing some of the costs that we're seeing too.
Yep, so that's all happened since the consultation amount came.
It's happened through the whole process, really. It's constantly looking at where we can find efficiencies in personnel.
So that wouldn't be anticipated.
Well, how do you mean anticipate it? But
Well,
we
you know, you
almost
have to expect- I mean,
anticipate.
it must be cyclical, so it's still $40,000 more. So things are cyclical, you know, these things are coming up, but that wasn't anticipated.
No, I
It was
think,
an unexpected, it must be unexpected because it was $40,000 more.
yeah, I think, well, you might add to that too.
Well, we assume when we prepare this budget, a percentage increase. And that might have been 2.6% inflation, or possibly 3%. And the Remuneration Authority gives us new numbers post that are more. We assume for staff benefits that superannuation contribution from the employer is at 3%. The government changes its mind and says superannuation contributions from employers are 4%. There's another percent across the staff remuneration budget that we have to build in. So we're constantly, the budget that we bring forward to you is the most up-to-date figures based on the best estimates.
There's discussion time after this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Holmes and Councillor Jackson.
This was the Wainoa Water. Carlton District Council asked people to join up in Wainoa for water. One of the reasons they were reluctant to join up was because the water they got from Marsden was too cheap. When was the last increase in the water to that Wainoa area?
It goes up by the same amount that the water rates go up for the urban water supply. So we're not charging the water any more than we charge the Masterton rural properties who are not in the urban area. So anyone who's on a rural water meter is paying the same water rates as Carterton.
Thank you.
And the idea of the Wainoa area was that people wouldn't pay more rates there than in Masterton. So it would encourage people, if they have an industrial use, to set up in the industrial dedicated area. And the cost would be the same as they would if they were in the Masterton.
Councillor Jackson.
But just the tree around the rural trees, we added 100,000 and we're proposing the 50,000. How did we scope the 150,000 in the first place and the risk of those trees?
It's probably a question for Kane in terms of him nominating that 150,000 and where it would be spent, which blocks of roadside trees have been identified as being needing work.
Any other questions? Thank you, thank you. So I'd like to set the scene. Having communicated with most of you over the last couple of days, there's a deep appetite to get down from our 5.2. I don't believe it's about delivering a number per se, but it's about a delivery and a work program and a budget that delivers value for money, but also service delivery that's appropriate for our community, whilst ensuring that we have a balanced budget. So there's a general consensus that we want to do better, which is great. And while we're here today for this extraordinary meeting, it's quite complex, the options here, and I think there are probably things that some people support and some people don't support. So I'd like to open up for discussion, but also look at the recommendations here and discussing each one individually as well to see whether support is in the room for which of the recommendations here. So, and I'd also like to make sure that we hear from everybody as well. So, Councillor Goodwin, would you like to start?
Well, I certainly feel like option 2 is the more honest way to address this. And the only thing that I'm quite happy to go that way, but I do wonder if we could add in the 150,000 less debt repaid in wastewater treatment plant. It's a bit, you know, it's a cost that's ring fenced to us, so it's not dishonest, but it just delays that payment a little bit, and we could bring it down even further.
Thank you, Brent. David, do you have a response to that risk?
The revenue that YT Waters is expecting to collect from the mastered and serviced properties for water and wastewater and stormwater is what we said in our LTP and our water services delivery plan. And that included the level of debt repayment from that revenue going into debt repayment. So what we would be doing is reducing that revenue by 150,000 from where they expected to be in their first year of operation. They will have a lower level of revenue. They may well stay with the revenue number that's in the water services delivery plan, and that 150,000 goes back in. And the water consumers have to pick up that decrease. So it's a one-off, it's a 1 year reduction. Yeah, the YT Waters invoices, they will fully expect to have revenue that includes that 150,000. It's not about the debt repayment, it's the level of revenue that they over to do their operations. Whether they allocate it to debt repayment is their decision next year. So we're reducing the revenue that we're going to collect from waters the following year. Their expectation will be that it will be in there still, and they will collect it. So consumers will pay more the following year.
That's right.
It's a 1 year reduction.
Yes.
Does anyone, before we move on, does anyone have a point, anything they want to discuss just on that point, just on the, Craig?
So that would see, because we do things on CV, if we were to take out the recommendation, people with higher value buildings and commercial buildings would be paying less this year, and that would then be transferred to YT the following year, where people on lower incomes will be paying more because we transferred this over.
May I suggest the future water charges we've voted on and those are yet to be set. So
But it's the cost of
that,
service
that
principle.
is
So,
a
so we're,
little speculative.
so we're kicking the can down the road, which is the exact reason why waters were taken away from us.
But the can stays in our yard because we still have to pay the 150,000.
Yeah.
The following year.
And by doing this, you're then taking someone such as, I'll be honest, such as myself, who is happy to pay on a CV charge, someone such as yourself who has a 1.0 to 2 times commercial rate. Under YT Waters, that will drop and you'll be paying considerably less. So I think it's not quite right that we should be taking that 150 out.
Does anyone else have any other comments on that recommendation from councillor Goodwin?
Yep, just, so you just said under, it's related to your response. What do you mean under YT Waters? Rent or a commercial property owner will be paying a lot less for water?
Because it's on how much you use volumetric. At the moment, commercial, their portion of water is charged as per their CV.
Oh, so just for water?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your comment on this wee debate, David, please? I would like to hear your expertise.
The ref.
We're in discussion. Okay, Gary.
I might be a little bit different. I mean, I've got a relatively open mind on this whole thing, but at the moment I'm supporting keeping the rates increased to 5.2%. We've already reduced the projected increase from 6.5%. And that's been done over months, maybe 6 months, where we've looked at everything we could. We've asked the staff to come back time and time again, and we arrived at 5.2%. We have stated that publicly a number of times. I have to say, to me personally, the public reaction is favourable. I mean, nobody likes rate increases, but I think most people have found a 5.2 increase to be a sensible and prudent increase. I don't agree. I don't argue that reducing the rates increase to 4% sounds great. And I mean, it's going to give us a few brownie points with people, and it's going to make some people a bit happier. But at the same time, we have to remember that if we reduce to 4%, then we also reduce some services. And a lot of those services are actually, if we're looking at going to 4% to make life easier for our ratepayers, and particularly those on fixed incomes and whatever, a lot of those people are going to be affected quite drastically by services being cut. So what you're giving on one hand and you're taking off the other. I have a prime example of when I was mayor and I had the meetings on a Thursday of people. And one of the things that often came up in council discussions was that one of the easy ways to save money was to stop cutting the booms. That was one of the easy ways. Well, I had this group of elderly women come and see me, and they said, Gary, do you realise that people like us on fixed incomes, we don't have lawnmowers. We don't have any other way for our lawns to be cut than by council staff. And we don't want to have the most untidy street in Masterton by our lawns not being cut. So whilst not cutting the booms seems like being a very small thing, to people on fixed incomes, it's actually a big thing. And it woke me up in the sense that sometimes we think of things being trivial, but in actual fact, they're not. They're seen by people to be quite important. So I think we could be actually doing ratepayers a disservice by reducing rates to 4% at this stage. What I would rather see is that we maintain the 5.2%, but that we, as part of our motion or whatever we do today, that we say that we look very seriously at reducing that 5.2% down to that 4% or whatever you'd like to get to over the years to come. Because at this stage, if we reduce to the 4%, I have a real feeling that our next rate increases over the next few years are going to be considerably higher than what they would have been, and also that we're going to take a hell of a lot of flack from people who might now think that they're saving money because we've reduced to 4%. But when they realise the services and that are being cut, that they're actually at a disadvantage. So at this point, although I still do have an open mind, I'm very happy to listen to all the rest of the discussion. I favour staying at 5.2%.
Robin,
Actually concur with Mr. Capel, but based on the fact that you've already gone out to the community and you've already stated that it would be 5.2, I don't think you need to change the direction of the WACA based on emotive issues currently around the table. I think you just need to stay the course. I think you need to plan for next year's budget at potentially 4%.
thank you. Tim,
Don't have a speech prepared. What I will say is I strongly support option 2. I don't support all aspects of option 2. I think that we should have looked at salaries, personnel, and it's been a topic I've raised many times. When we do look at what was projected in the long-term plan on our budget and what's actually gone out to consultation, it's $537 higher. I hear your explanation, David, from before, but it's a significant amount. I think it's not an emotive issue. I think it's a financial issue. And the difference between 4% and 5.2% is significant for some. I think it sets the scene, sets the expectation that we're not kicking it down the road in terms of hoping to get it done next year. We're doing it this year. And, you know, we hear stories, and I'll give you a story because Mr. Gary's given one. You know, I spent a bit of time at Strata. I talked to Candy and Cherish, the owners. They tell me about people they see, you know, an elderly couple coming in to buy 2 scones and 2 cups of coffee. They're now buying 1 scone to share the 2 cups of coffee. So every cent truly counts. And that's a true story for Cherish as well. This is our opportunity to set the scene, to be a phenomenal council, to do everything we possibly can for our ratepayers, as small as this amount may seem, that extra 1.2%, because I see it, and we must be talking to different people, Gary and I talk to a lot of people because I'm involved in a community organisation. People are struggling more than you know. People live lives of quiet desperation, and these people are often the people you don't think are living those lives. If we can help in any way, and 4% is a significant way to start, I think we're setting a really good precedent for the council to move forward with.
thanks, Tim. Stella.
Thank you. Thank you. The economic landscape nationally and within our own district has changed dramatically since we first discussed the annual plan and the rate, you know, average rate increase of 5.2. So I firstly want to say that I really acknowledge and appreciate the discussions we had at the workshop last week as a team of elected members to get to this point today, but also come to you and your team for quickly coming together to actually present to us not just one option, but 2 options that we could consider. And I think today is actually, regardless of where we land, wonderful that we've actually been able to be put in a position today to discuss this and to seek further reductions for our ratepayers. In regards to the options given to us, I am in favour of option 2. There's some aspects that wave a little red flag for me, just around possibly what Gary was touching on, is that services will be cut. But I think they're not huge reductions where we won't see services cut completely, just the levels will be reduced. So therefore I'm relatively comfortable. But yeah, not much more to say except that, you know, thank you and great that we're in this position, and I will be looking at being with option 2. Thank you.
AJ.
Probably concur with some of the comments. Firstly, just wanted to acknowledge Kim and the wider team that spent their weekend on this, and to acknowledge that asking questions at the right time is really important, that we don't put extra stress and pressure on our team. And I appreciate the mahi that you've done. For me, I acknowledge that you've consulted on an LTP. You've found savings based on some additional expenditures that faced the council. So it's kind of like a double cut at finding savings. So I want to acknowledge that. But for me, I'm really keen to be part of a culture that we look for ongoing savings and opportunities think we have seen a change in our landscape. So I'm supporting a reduction. I'm not supporting a number, probably Bex. I'd like to work my way through the suggestions that we've got. And probably just in future, it will be really good to understand, it was Tim's question around the percentage that those savings make up of that operation expenditure. So for example, the 25% of the airport expenditure for the not painting, what percentage is that? And you've articulated what it is for rec trails. I think it's prudent and it's wise for us to do this, and I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. Thanks to the staff.
Thank you. Wairika.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm going to agree with AJ. I also appreciate that we've gone from 6.5 down to 5.2, that we have gone out to the LTP and, and said, with a certain figure, we've got 2 weeks until we have to lock this in. We're time critical right now. So that's obviously something that we need to take into consideration. I think that just feedback on the numbers is just that it would have been good to see, comparative total costs, like the trees, like we've included 155 and 55 we're suggesting we'll take out of that, but we haven't included it in the other areas, particularly with the airport, which was already been said. What I can see is that it's about $918,000 of operating costs for the airport, but then only 25k being offered up in that space. So just a little bit more thinking around how we provide and how, because it can be seen as skewering the numbers by providing us a total, but not, and then not for everything. So that would be useful to make some of those determinations. But yeah, I think that potentially we can do a little bit more crunching of that percentage, but not sure if the option 2 totally kind of sums it up and author 4%. So maybe somewhere in between, like you've said, Bex and AJ.
Mihi ana ki a tātou, mo tēnei taukumukumu, tēnei kōrero. Me pono te kōrero, kei te wiwi, kei te wawa. I've gone back and forth over the last couple of days between options 1 and 2. And listening to the kōrero today hasn't cleared anything up for me and has made it even more between 1 and 2. Heoi anō, I think it's important to stay the course as well. I think that I am going to lean towards an option 1, because I think then we can still take the insights that the team have gained from this very quick exercise and apply it over the next year to come out at the end of the year with an overall 4% rates look. Koira tēnā. I'm sure there's going to be continued discussion and I will continue to wee wā on it. Kia ora. Thank you for the peanut scratch.
David.
Thank you. Well, the reality is you can't have your cake and eat it too. Simple as that. And there's lots of things I think that we haven't said that we'd do and look into the last 12 months or so that we haven't done. And I'm really concerned about the rural rates. They're extremely high, and the forestry situation with the roading. I think we need to look at that 70-30 split with roading. We've looked at that before. And obviously the valuation that was done when the trees were sky high several years ago has affected the values of putting them up, but valuation coming out, David, I believe in September. I think that country will come out. The trees are a major concern in the rural area, and Jamie was really hot on that. And I just noticed yesterday somewhere that Alec Birch has come out and said that he's disappointed that it's been reduced or potentially being reduced. So I think the most important thing we need to do is that we need to make sure that our contractors are doing their jobs properly. And if a contract's up for a certain thing to do, they've got to do it at a reasonable price. So yes, I believe we made the decision about 5.2, but I'm very tempted to look at 4 and see, I'll just listen to the conversation. Thank you.
Craig,
Thank you once again to the staff for the time put in. Incredibly challenging as it tends to be at this time with as we head towards the end. I myself am somewhere between option 1 and 2. The option 2, I have some concerns around the last part, the increased revenue projections. I think that's more hopium than going to do them. Yeah, so I'm a bit like Mayor Bex has said, AJ, Waireka, and a few of us. I'd like to just look at those different options in option 2 and see where we land.
okay. So me, I would like to look at option 2, and there's more, respecting what everyone said, there's more interest in option 2 around the table, but there are some things listed there that I feel more comfortable with than others. And so if you have an appetite for this, while we're having discussions, I'd like to go through option 2 and the suggestions here and get a general feeling from you around the room, what's palatable and what's not. Reiterating that we have to think about service delivery, promises made, problem areas, value for money, and what we're prepared as elected members to weather. So if you look at page 8, everybody, option 2.
Yep.
The first.
Could we, like, when you said option 2, but sorry, option 3, when you spoke at the beginning, you spoke about the $100,000 less transferred to flood storm.
We can come to that.
So that can be part of this discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Brent's 150,000, was that covered in what David responded with?
We'll see if there's an appetite for that, which was the reason why I asked for feedback when Brent raised it. But we'll work through this. We won't leave anything out. But we'll try and reach a place where we all feel as comfortable as possible. You happy with that?
I'd like to look at those option 3s first, because before we go to option 2s,
Okay. What were you going to say, Brent?
Scope.
Just check out for a couple 2 minutes.
Yeah, we'll quickly do that wastewater one then while Brent's out, shall we?
Aye.
Are you just going to do a show of hands on these ones? Or?
Yeah, and some discussion. Yeah, because if we just chip away at this, we'll get where we need to land. We can, well, why don't we wait till Brent comes back for that option? No, we'll just wait for him. I do want to say too, while we've got this moment, thank you so much for doing this work. Really appreciate it. Respecting how busy you all are, but it's something that we can get our teeth into. And so thank you for listening.
I just say that, and as far as David's point goes around the valuation and the roading policy allocation of rates is something that we'll come on to later in the morning when we go through the financing policy discussions.
Yeah.
It's not something we can address in this budget though.
Yep. Oh, okay.
Like he's back.
Everything go all right, Brent? Okay, well, let's have a look at option 3 first. So we want to work out what the appetite is. So we come to option 3, and the first one is, as Brent raised, 150,000 less debt repaid in wastewater treatment budget. So that's been explained and been covered. Is there anyone who needs to ask any more questions about that for clarification first? No? Okay, so Brent, this is one of your suggestions. Is there any support for this around the table?
I mean, I would have been, ultimately I want option 2, but I think my second preference would have been for option 3, even though I don't like the idea of not having any staff efficiency involved at all. But I'd be happy to have that in there as a partial compromise between 2 and 3.
So the wastewater to be included in option 2, is that what you're saying?
No, it's essentially, it's a hybrid option, 2 and 3. So just moving that into, because that doesn't fit the scope of the other things in option 2. It's quite a different thing, but I'd be happy for that to be part of an overall resolution today.
So bringing,
To be included, I suppose, yeah, it does have to be included.
so bringing the 2 together.
Yep.
Okay, is there anybody else who has support for that?
Can I just ask, is that because it's moving over to the new waters entity?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Is it somewhat gaming?
That's mine.
Yeah.
Just for clarity in terms of some councils doing it and some not, and then handing over.
Personally, I think it's disingenuous.
Yes, okay, so I don't support that.
You've, just my personal opinion, because you've said this is the house that you're buying, and now we're taking the garage away, kind of thing.
In the interest of amalgamation and collaboration, I don't support.
Yeah, and I personally don't think it sends a good signal to an entity that we're going to be a shareholder of and working with, and then reshuffle the deck 5 minutes before they pick up the cards. It's just my personal opinion. Any other feedback on that?
They would have all been built into, it's been done with white tea anyway.
So we're not aware of other councils and our potential amalgamation doing that or not.
Yeah, but we need support for around the table. Doesn't appear to be. So we'll move to option 2.
Were we going to look at your one as well? 100.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yes. So that was one of my suggestions with the flood storm damage fund, taking into account the comment that you just made about the recent storm. So let's have a row about that one. Where do people see this sitting? Or Brent?
Yeah, I'd happily take that 100,000 saving in place of maybe the stormwater 40,000 and the roadside trees.
Okay, so my
Sort of
suggestion.
trade,
Yeah, my suggestion is if we just leave the flood management one sitting there for the moment, and we'll go, because I get the feeling that there's no, great big ranting and raving about for or against, but it's a possibility that we could work with. And we'll go to option 2.
Yeah, and then go.
And we'll go through those and see where we land, and then come back and revisit the flood management.
Just to clarify, so that 370,000 less depreciation funded into reserves.
We're not going.
Righty, this is not going to.
Okay, so option 2, and we'll be.
Sorry, can I just ask the question, David? You'd noted that potentially something's going to come back. Is there going to be enough in the floodplain management and the flood storm damage fund to cover what you're going to bring back?
No, it's in deficit at the moment. The 500 that was in the budget for next year would have brought it close to a balanced budget, but what we're coming back with next week is a report that says potentially another 3,000 claim on that fund if we get the full subsidy. So there's $1.7 million of damage, I think, from the April event. And there was a February event as well. So we've had 2 events and claims on that fund out, which is paying our share of damage while we get subsidy money from NZTA. So we're not rating, we're rating 500,000 a year as a backstop for our share of any event. And that's going into a fund, and we're drawing on the fund, and the fund has been in deficit for a number of years. So we really need to be putting more in that fund and building it up. But where while we get hit with events, and 2 in the last 6 months, then yeah, reducing the amount going to the fund isn't the greatest move, but it's an option that you've got to keep rates down.
Thanks, David. Brent?
Just a query on that, David, in that if we don't replenish the fund, build it up, as you mentioned, when an event happens, if we borrow the money to cover that event, if and when it happens, it's the same. It's the same thing, isn't it? Because we have the ability to borrow. We don't, whilst it's prudent and good to have that sort of war chest, if you like, it's not essential. And that if an event happens, we can borrow it. Is it? Could you just comment on?
There's a distinction between external borrowing and internal borrowing and use of our reserve funds. And so we go into a deficit in that fund, but we've got money in other funds and they balance each other out. So internal borrowing is effectively utilising the capacity that the council's reserves have to go into deficit, with the expectation that you'll bring the deficit back to balance over time. Borrowing externally every time there's an event and you spend that money on repairs and non-capital work is not within the funding policy, and it's not within the balanced budget. You're spending operating expenditure and you're borrowing for it instead of getting revenue to match. So external borrowing for storm events is not recommended.
But it's what we've done for the last few years, isn't it? We've done quite a bit of that in the last few years.
We've
of borrowing because the fund has been in deficit.
Or where we've increased the capacity of the roading network to withstand the next event. Resilience, if you like. So we've built retaining walls. We've propped up roads and improved drainage. And that sort of expenditure can be borrowed for externally and repaid over time. But where it's just going out and responding to a flood and cleaning up the road, those are costs that we are drawing on the flood damage fund for.
Okay, thank you. So we were with first point on page 8 in option 2. A generic saving taken off the salary budget as a placeholder for a vacancy lad and any potential efficiencies across the organisation, circa 190k. David, do you want to talk to this first, or because you've already explained it, you heard that? Yep. So how does everyone feel about this point? Are we happy, Tim?
I'd like to see a lot more. I would have liked to see a lot more done there. Up until the beginning of this year, average stage, the average full-time equivalent on council was earning about 120 employments, was getting $180,000 a year. That's the average. That was including severances packages as well. The average salary of a full-time equivalent has gone up 24% over the last 2 years. Yeah, I think that's quite extreme. I feel like the fact that it's only actually $150,000 between the projected long-term or the consultation on long-term plan and the actual amount for option 2 that's not really significant. There's 40. I feel that could be significantly higher, and I think it could be considerably more looked for in that particular area. And I would like to have seen that.
Further commentary on this area, Brent?
Yeah, I like to think that with the changes coming up, that there will be staff will be moving around and into water entities and with amalgamation, etc. That I would like that increase, you know, if it could go up another 100,000.
I don't think we're asking for an increase here. I'm asking for you whether you want to confirm this recommendation at this point.
Well,
Well,
I'll certainly confirm the 190, but I'm asking if we can increase it.
Other comments?
Yep, just confirm the recommendation and acknowledge that it's based on lag of recruitment of staff, and so there is some risk that sits along that, but it to be balanced out with the potential losing of staff to other entities. Happy with that.
Okay. So we're trying to identify what stays in and what goes out. And so you're happy for this to stay in?
so we're looking at them all in their entirety.
Yes, because these are the recommendations from the finance team.
Okay, so it's either in or out, all of these.
Yeah, and we can also then revisit the flood management one to come back into option 2 if we've got that desire. So the next one is stormwater asset maintenance. Comment on this, please. Is that you, Gary? No? Brent?
If I could replace it with, I'll take it if I absolutely have to, because I want 4%, but I would rather replace it with something borrowed from 3.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel the same way about the rural roadside trees and also the non-subsidised roading maintenance. Just thought I'd get that out here now. I want would prefer that those areas are addressed, that the maintenance stays. It's visible stuff that we're doing also too, which I think the community would notice. So we'll come back. What were you going to say, Stella?
I was going to speak to the exact same thing. I'd like to see the stormwater asset management and the roadside trees remain and hopefully reinstated by the flood management.
Okay, water resilience project funding. Is anyone who that can just go?
Yeah.
Correct? Are you making somebody make a note of this? Are you making a note of this, AJ?
No, sorry, so we decided, MP Whitley decided on the stormwater asset.
No, we're coming back to that.
Okay.
With regards to resilience, I was chairman of that water resilience, and not a thing, not one council's come up with any idea to keep it going. I think what'll happen, it'll be come back in another form. Person I do worry about is Janie. She's brilliant, and she loses her job at the end of June, so I just acknowledge the amount of work that she's done for that.
Thanks, David. Airport terminal and operational maintenance reduced by 25%. Is there anyone who opposes that?
As long as it's
25,000, sorry.
Yeah, as long as it's what David mentioned, painting. It's nothing hugely structural or anything. A building's not going to collapse.
Nobody's opposed to that? Nope. Budgets, property budgets, building and ground maintenance costs reduced by 55k. Is anyone opposed to that?
I'd actually like to see that be opposed to it. I think maintenance, one of those things that's kicking the can down the road. So yeah, I would say not reduce it.
Anybody else feel? No, that one can stay in, AJ. Non-subsidised roading maintenance costs reduced by 55,000. We've got some opposition to this remaining in there. Does anyone else feel the same? So far, we've got myself, Stella.
Brent.
Yep, I support it staying in.
The roading maintenance costs.
Yeah, stay in.
So yeah. Oh no. To me, sorry.
I don't reduce it.
Yeah, don't.
What is the current amount? What are we gonna look like? I mean, we just found out about the storm flooding thing. What does that mean? What does that $55,000 mean?
See if I can find it.
Great question, Monica.
And I want to know that about the property budget too. Sorry. Does that mean the swimming pool, or does that mean?
Well, the property is the rental housing, both housing for the elderly and other housing, public toilets, rural halls, Molly
We're
Park.
probably going.
Molly Park. So there's maybe 50 or 60 budget line items through those budgets that allow for grounds maintenance and building maintenance, which is painting and repairs and so on. And each one will have a number in it. attached to either a contract price or a provision for doing work when it's needed. And that might be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6,000 every line. And what we're doing to get to that total is trimming something off a number of those lines. So I can't off the top of my head tell you what the total is, but that reduction would be around 5%.
Right, but not including the rec centre, not including.
No, it's property, not recreation.
Okay, and then in regards to the roading maintenance, same thing, like how much do we currently spend on that? Because again, just like the trees, I feel like that's something that's quite visible, like it means that we're no longer going to be.
The road legalisation budget is 20,000 and hasn't been spent in the last 2 years.
Okay.
So it's a budget provision, and I'm suggesting we take 20,000 of that. And then the mowing and noxious weeds is trimming it, I think by 10,000 off a $30,000 budget. So we can do less spraying for roadside weeds, less mowing in midsummer when the grass is high. The potential is that we haven't got enough money and there's a danger because we've left the grass growing too long. But
yeah. And so going back to the flood corridor, which we're already in deficits annually with that funding anyway, do we normally spend all of that?
The flood?
No, sorry, in regards to the noxious weeds.
The noxious weeds, yes.
So we spend it all.
We generally spend those budgets, yes.
I wonder why sorry, just one more wondering, just thinking about reducing in summer. Does that mean we do summer when maybe potentially we don't need to?
Well, they mow when the growth is causing an issue in terms of roadside visibility.
Right.
Okay. David, then Brent.
I just thought that mowing was part of the Higgins tender and they subcontracted it out. Is that correct? That's what I always thought happened.
Yes, they do. Yep.
But isn't it a part of the original tender?
The budget is there to pay for the work. Who does it is within the roading team, but in terms of whether they need all of the budget number that's in the current figure to do the work, we've suggested that you could reduce that budget a little and they can still do the same level of work.
I'm sorry, I actually thought that was a part of the tender, the original tender, and it was it shouldn't cost us anything because Higgins were paying it. That's what I thought.
We pay Higgins.
We get a line by line every single month that comes through to roading and then comes through to with every single cost centre that's spent on whatever it might be.
Whoever does it comes back to
you're right.
Comes back to the council.
Assumption I had.
Brent.
Yeah, just for clarification, I many of these cuts I'm hearing that you think we could make them without necessarily having a reduction in service because it may not be needed. Now, I know that's not a certainty, but it's using some very experienced judgment. And am I hearing that right? It's that some things haven't been used in the past, so you're suggesting we use them. And I take a lot of comfort from your judgment.
It's a case of we tell you that there's no fat in the budget, and whether you accept that or not, there is always a budget, and spending that budget is on need sometimes rather than it's already committed. So some budgets are ordered works, and if we need to do the work, the budget's there to do it. If we didn't need to do the work, we haven't spent the budget. And so going through line by line and looking for savings, what we've done is say, well, that's maybe something that you could save. And then when we do need to do the work, we haven't got the budget. The risk is we're going to go over budget if we do need to do the work. So it comes with a level of risk in making those cuts or trims.
Okay, so can we
Oh,
think,
sorry,
David?
can I have one more?
Yep.
Sorry, just in regards to the contractors, which is the point that David raised earlier. And I feel like I heard you say that we can ask them to do the same job, but for less money. Is that anyway? If that's what you said, then okay, cool. And when do we review our contractors? So that we can go, okay, you know what, the council members have asked for less spending in this area. Do we find somebody else who can do it and meet it at that rate that we want to be spent at, or do we continue with them and do less? Because I mean, it feels like an opportunity to me.
Well, we have contract management, so we have an example is member of our staff will meet with the likes of the roading contractor. What has been suggested is that those meetings will be there's less focus on mowing that because we don't have the funding available. And that's sort of the direction at the time. So
is that always?
Well, it always happens now, absolutely. Yeah. But if the money's not there, something has to give. So work's not done. And that's pretty simple. It doesn't mean that it makes profit for Fulton Hogan or for Higgins or for Downer or for whoever it might be. Simply saying that the work doesn't get done, or that might be a visual thing, or it might not be. Again, we get throughout the year, we get constant requests from the community of the grass is long in a certain part, what's happening, and then we get a bit of elected members getting involved, and then we have to rush around and do some of that. That's very intentional at times to be able to manage our costs, is that we don't necessarily, do stuff that's not 100% necessary to do. That makes sense. We try and
Just sorry. So my son's going to Wales, and we booked we got a quote from one provider. It's $2,000 more than the second provider that of course we went with. So I'm just wondering, and I mean, obviously we can't solve this today, but just, I know we've talked about contractors in the past and like having a look to see, there's probably a bit of monopoly in that space, maybe, and we don't have other options, but when do we go out, and maybe find somebody who can do the same level of service, but for less cost?
Well, we run very comprehensive procurement processes to get the best deal that we can, and so we run those very frequently. We're doing that with waste management at the moment, so it happens.
So you get multiple quotes.
We don't sit there and just accept what's given. We also value engineer those contracts too. Say, well, actually, the market tells us that it's not that price. So there's a lot of negotiation that goes on from receiving a tender price to closing the deal. Right. We also have benchmarks around the country as to what others pay. We get advice from NZTA on recommended costs too, approaching things. So it's not pie in the sky. We also have experienced staff who can tell pretty quickly whether or not there's a contractor that might be trying to pull a fast one. So and just because we're small, I think we still have strong knowledge of the sector and what's going on, and I think smaller is sometimes better.
Awesome, thank you,
David.
I was just going to say that the roadside mowing is often it's dictated by the climate of the year, the season. It's a real moist, growthy summer. They do it twice. It's mainly on corners and just down the side of the road. If it's a season like we're going to get, probably only do it once.
That's why it's unpredictable too, and that's why the contracts are performance based rather than you mow that patch every 3 weeks. It's
and a lot of farmers are mowing the roadsides.
So can we just come back to the property budgets, building and ground maintenance costs reduced 55k? Do we leave that one in here as a recommendation?
Yeah.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
AJ, we'll leave that one in on the list. I'll just jump and go to recreational trails ordered works reduced by 10k. Is there any opposition to that staying in?
I mean, it's $10,000, and I raised what I said about staff, for example, and personnel before. and this is something I'm quite passionate about, but I'll leave it in there. But I think it's important that we get to this 4%.
Thank you, Tim.
Bex, I just had a question. Is it just responding maintenance? It's not planned for something in particular? That we're not giving up something, it's for a top up of the potholes and.
It's the audit works budget for, it doesn't, there's a contract maintenance budget as well, where the contractor is going out and spraying for weeds and keeping the rec trails in a constant condition. But the audit works is where they go out and do some extra
On top of the
things
contract.
on top of the contract. It's reducing the capacity to do that.
Okay, so is there any opposition to that remaining in the option? No. Development plan provision reduced by 20K. Is there any opposition to that remaining option?
Can I just ask a question there? Karen, will that have much effect on where we're going?
And secondary question,
On the development plan,
could we increase it to 30?
we, yes, of course, it will, if we're having to work within a budget. We're at the point where we're only assessing what we think we need to spend, because it's largely, if we're in this policy vacuum and we don't know what's coming through with the spatial plan, we're keeping costs low as we possibly can. But when we're working with consultants, is what it is, what we need to do. So we will just have to cut our cloth, I guess, and then maybe we'll have to do more work following it. Yes, it will obviously have an impact.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. So just back to that, is there any opposition to leaving that one in the recommendation?
I'll voice my opposition.
Nobody else? Okay.
Keep it.
The revenue from parking higher than option 1 allowed. Are we feeling comfortable with that?
I'm not comfortable with it at all, but I don't know the answer here, because we're talking about if it's in or out. Okay, we haven't come to is it moderator or whatever. Okay, but it's just making those targets, and we haven't. We could make this from selling property and stuff like that, but we haven't really kicked on and got that stuff going either. So my concern around this is actually making that figure.
Yeah. Other feedback? Tim?
Being the only one in the last council who voted against having any fees, I'll compromise and leave that as it is again to get to that 4%.
AJ?
Probably similar to Craig, just want to understand the level that we actually might achieve through. I think David articulated earlier, some of them more than others.
Gary?
Yeah, I just need to probably get up and explain my position here, because I'm not actually, I'm still, the more I hear this conversation, the more I'm in favour of staying where we were at 5.2%, because I think we're going to affect so many people, and I don't think we're realising the effect that these sort of things are going to have on people's lives. So I just want to clarify that I'll be actually voting for the 5.2. I'll be voting against all this.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard work, isn't it? Okay, I think what we might do, so we've got a level of discomfort around that. Let's come back to the stormwater asset maintenance reduced 40K. There's been some discussion about that? Are we comfortable to leave that in as recommendation?
Again, I'll just say I would not have it in there, because I think stormwater maintenance is.
It's for a majority vote.
You might have to have
Okay, hands up for leaving stormwater in as a recommendation to reduce by 40K.
Keeping it in.
Keeping it in there as a recommendation to reduce.
As a statement.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we should. And I think the way to go is now, we just go majority for each line.
Go through each line.
It's going to be very difficult.
Can I ask that we vote on putting something back in and then go through the list? Does that make sense? Like, we've talked about the 100,000.
Okay, floodwater damage.
Put that, find out if that's
Going
going
to
to
show put up your right hand for those of us who wish the $100,000 less transferred to the flood storm damage fund to go into the option 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. It fails. Now we go to option 2. So the first not included.
Not included.
Yeah.
So that changes.
So then we go to option 2, a generic saving taken off the salary budget. All those who favour that remaining in.
I vote for it, but it should
3,
be fine.
4, 5, 6, 7. That's that stays in. AJ?
Yep, I'm against.
I know where you stand, Gary. Thank you for sharing that. Stormwater asset maintenance, vote for those to stay in as reduced at 40K. Who supports that?
I'm supporting everything. So opposite.
Is that fails? AJ? Water is,
Taking this out.
yep.
So we're not reducing it.
Oh, shall I do in and out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it? Wahi wahi?
Wee wah wah.
Wee wah wah.
What's wahi wahi mean?
Reminds me of
It's a
what.
hybrid.
Yeah.
Wee
Wee
wah wah. Wahi wahi. Sorry. Okay, in or to keep in the option 2, raise your hands. Water resilient project funding removed at 20K. So that stays in the option 2. Airport terminal building, maintenance reduced by 25K, stays in the option. Rural roadside trees reduced by 55K. Put your hand up if you wish it to stay in the option. That comes out. Property budgets, building and ground maintenance reduced by 55K. Put your right hand up if you want it to stay in the option. That stays in. Non-subsidized roading maintenance costs reduced by 55K. Right hand if it stays in the option. Stays in. Development, recreational trails ordered works reduced by 10K. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stays in the option. Development plan provision reduced by 20K. 2, 3, 4 stays in the option. Revenue from parking, dog fines, etc. 145K higher than option 1 allowed.
Yep.
That stays in. Okay. So we now have what we will call an amended, an amended option 2.
I'll just put them in to the resolution.
And what
We
that
might need
means
to
then
change.
is finance.
So, resilient project.
It's coming out, that's in, that one's out. It's out.
Oh, I can do the run through it.
Sorry, no.
Oh, yeah.
So 190 plus 20. Okay, so we remove storm. That's
Is it estimate?
against
That's what was happening.
It's running.
Can we adjourn for 5 minutes, please?
Yep.
And then we'll vote on that. Recommendation is that council receives the annual plan 2026-27. Point 2, agrees the proposed annual plan work program and budget for 26-27 as set out in a revised option 2. An annual plan and budget that results in an average tax increase of 4.2%. Noting this meets a balanced budget benchmark of 99.7%. And incorporates revised revenue and cost assumptions to option 1 that are more aggressive and cost reductions that have a higher risk of not being achieved or could result in a reduction of work that can be undertaken in some activity areas, including 1, generic savings from the salary budget of 190,000. 2, water resilience project funding removed 20K. 3, airport terminal building and operational maintenance reduced 25,000. Property budgets, building budgets and ground maintenance costs reduced 55,000. 5, non-subsidised roading maintenance costs reduced by 55,000. 6, recreational trails ordered works reduced 10,000. 7, development plan provision reduced by 20,000. 8, revenue from parking, dog fines, resource consents, building consents, water supply to Wainawa areas all increased to up 145,000. 3, notes that for the option above, the scheduled fees for the Nursery Road transfer station will be set higher than those consulted on due to anticipated cost increases relating to fuel prices. 4, notes that the approved option will be built into the draft 2026-27 annual plan, which is scheduled for adoption on June 24th, 2026. And 5, notes that the 2026-27 annual plan must be adopted by 30 June 2026, and the rates resolution for 2026-27 will follow the adoption of the annual plan. I need a mover for this, please. Deputy Mayor Bowyer, seconded by Councillor Goodwin. Please raise your right hand. All those in favour?
No discussion.
Oh, yes.
I'm
okay.
just looking at the amount of shortage to get to that. You know, it is, you're now looking at optics of 4%. It's $108,000. We talked about the stormwater thing. It was 4 people who voted for that and 5 against it. We was to bring that over, it would give us to that 4%. And I just feel like if we're trying to, you know, let's say that we can work within that rate capping recommendation and get to 4%. It's $108,000. We funded $500,000, I think, for trees, just like that, a couple of weeks ago. Yet we're struggling, and I know it comes from different areas. The money comes from place, but it's still council money. So I would just like to see perhaps us looking at putting that one extra thing in, or using even reserves or a mechanism to get to 4%. That's my point.
Just hang on, just got a question. So if we do a mover and seconder, if Tim wanted. Yeah, so we move and second this.
Yeah.
Then if you want to put an amendment, Tim. So do I have a mover and Councillor Bowyer, seconded by Councillor Goodwin?
We discuss.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to acknowledge everyone who's been involved in this. I've actually really enjoyed this day. And I'd actually like to acknowledge, Tim, your role in this. I think without you, we probably wouldn't have been having this discussion. So I just want to acknowledge that. Okay? I'm very comfortable with this. I think this is a good result. And, you know, I've got some misgivings around some of this, but I think been a good morning, good session, council. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Jackson?
Probably just to reiterate the comments that Craig just made, just a big thanks to the staff and the team for the additional work and the elected members for making some conversations and uncomfortable conversations when we're thinking about what we deliver for and to our community. But I do have some concerns around those revenue targets, but I acknowledge the staff will do their very best to try and meet those. And I think it's a prudent example of finding savings in a really challenging time for our community. So I support the recommendation.
We need to vote on.
So it's moved and seconded, and if there's no discussion, then voted on. If it loses.
Yeah, then there's an opportunity to amend it. And knowing that what Tim's proposing to assist with your voting. So we'll put it to the vote. If you could raise your right hand, all those in favour? 1, 2, 7. Against? The motion has passed. Thank you for your time and for your considerated discussion. And toi te araha, toi te reo Māori. Ia tuturu, kia whakamoa, tina, tina, hui, tā, kia. I know, and we just, I did the opening